Sapiophile. Noun. One who is attracted to intelligence. Join us, three fun-loving lovers of knowledge who are ready to dig into your favorite topics with our very own nerdy diatribes, words of wisdom, and takes on life as millennials. Welcome to the Sapiophiles.
So I guess I'll start with this story. For those of you who don't know, I'm actually in Cork, Ireland right now. I am on my annual business trip, which is usually any amount of time between 1 week and 3 weeks. And what this allows me to do is, as the US rep for UCC, I spend most of my time in the United States. But this trip allows me to meet with faculty and staff and administrators and my colleagues, and gives me the opportunity to get to know everybody face to face, to meet over coffee, which anybody that knows me well knows that I'll never say no to coffee. It also gives me the chance to get to know my colleagues on a personal level. I know that they're having a barbecue for me right before I leave, which actually they thought was funny because I called it a cookout, and they don't know cookout in Ireland. It's just barbecue. Even if it's not an actual barbecue, it's barbecue. But in any case, being the sole person working for a major university in Ireland has given me many opportunities. One lesson that I have learned, though I didn't anticipate learning it, was learning how to be comfortable by myself on my own, traveling by myself, researching things on my own, not being afraid to really, I guess, to go right into our theme, take that leap of faith, whether that means planning and going on trips and adventures on my own, or researching and putting myself in positions where I'm meeting new partners in different states, even if I don't know the area, and just really learning to be comfortable with discomfort. And I know that sometimes sounds like it would be something that would be polar opposite. And while in many cases it is, it's also something that is a truth that's near and dear to my heart, because I feel like a lot of us shy away from discomfort. And I'm not saying, to not shy away from something that's painful or harmful to you, but discomfort is different than feeling unsafe. And some of the most uncomfortable moments in my life have led to some of the biggest times of growth in my life as well.
Absolutely.
And sometimes taking that leap of faith and putting yourself in a position where it's new and strange and you feel like you're not quite fitting into the situation allows you to break free from the confines that you've set for yourself and your limitations and really grow as a human. So that's where I'm coming from today. And I figured, since I'm abroad right now and since I am by myself,
out of your comfort zone,
that I would talk to you a little about that. So before I go on, is there anything you want to comment on, Chelsea? I guess.
Yeah, well, first we should mention that because we are now across seas from each other, we are actually minus a Marissa, but don't worry, she'll be back next time. So it is just the two of us today, but we'll have plenty to say, and you will get plenty more of Marissa coming soon. One of the things that stuck out to me in what you said, even if we're going outside of the idea of traveling on your own as your leap of faith thing, the importance of taking a leap of faith in all areas of your life. So like applying for a job that you're not quite sure you're qualified for, or taking a gamble on like a new friend or a new relationship, or going out of your way to just explore a new area in your own town. All of those are important too. And I think one of the biggest issues for people, whether it's our country, our age, our generation, I'm not sure, but one of the biggest issues that I've personally even found is the feeling of imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome, if you aren't familiar with the concept, is the feeling of you're the one person who doesn't belong here, and that the feeling of you're always going to be found out as not good enough. And I've certainly had that feeling at different points in my life, whether or not it was true. And I know that many people experience that at one point or another. So for instance, like you're working really hard at your job, but you're really hard on yourself. So you feel like they're going to figure out, your boss is going to figure out that you're not enough, that you're not really what they thought you were. You're not as smart as they thought you were. You're not as qualified as they thought you were. Even if you have all the qualifications, it has nothing to do with actually being unqualified for something. But feeling as if you aren't enough, I think makes a big difference, because when you feel as if you're not enough, you tend to stay in your little box and you don't take those risks. You don't ask for that raise, or you don't take a chance with someone new and exciting, or take a chance and explore a new place or travel. So I think that imposter syndrome is a big thing that we're all looking to overcome at one point or another. I certainly am.
Absolutely. I feel like that whole, everything that you just said could have been the definition of my first year working in my job right now. For those of you who don't know, I sometimes take for granted that Chelsea knows me very well and knows exactly how long I've been in my job. I'm about to start my 5th year. But my first year and even into my second, I seriously felt like I was an imposter. I knew deep down intellectually that I could do the job, and I knew that I was making an impact. But for some reason, just like my brain was telling me that I didn't belong and I didn't know why I had this position. And I felt like I had something to prove all the time, nonstop. Another thing that I thought of, and I was talking to you a little bit about this earlier when you mentioned imposter syndrome, just a perfect example is just something that I've recently taken up, an activity that I found while I was in Cork.
Cool.
So Cork has a group called the Sacred Harp Singers of Cork. And Sacred Harp is actually a type of singing and musical performance that was started in the United States, which is funny that I found it in Cork.
Where in the United States, do you know?
So it would have been in places like Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, in churches. So Sacred Harp is all sacred music, and it would have become popular before, during, and after the Civil War. So if anybody's ever seen Cold Mountain, when you see Nicole Kidman and Jude Law's characters singing in the church with their hands going up and down, and it's all a cappella and very loud and almost jarring, that's Sacred Harp music. It's also played during the first battle scene. The music that you hear in the background, the voices, that's Sacred Harp as well.
If you haven't found our playlist from episode 5 where we discuss music, there are quite a few Cold Mountain songs on that playlist, and you can listen to them all on our YouTube channel.
Excellent. Thank you, Chelsea. But in any case, I found this group. I was looking through a pamphlet because when you travel on your own, it's interesting trying to find things that you can do so that you're experiencing the culture of a place without, like Chelsea mentioned, feeling like you're an imposter and that you don't belong. And I fortunately found this. They had a little listing in a brochure that said, weekly singing Thursdays, 7 to 9, all are welcome, no experience necessary. And I was like, okay.
And you do have experience, so bonus. Singers. Yeah.
Exactly. So I went in, and as exciting as it was to initially sing with all these people, and I love singing with this group, the people are so welcoming. We always go and get a pint after at one of the local pubs after we sing. And it's just such an amazing, accepting group of people from all different levels of music and theory study. Some people have studied ethnomusicology and musical performance at various universities in Ireland. Others, Sacred Harp is their first time singing in a group. But in any case, the notes it's based on shape notes. So where I learned solfege, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, Sacred Harp only uses fa, sol, la, and mi. And they don't use them for notations. They actually have different shapes of the notes. So I think at some point, Chelsea, we should add a link to
definitely link to
Sacred Harp so people can see what I'm talking about.
I'm writing it down so that I do
when
that.
When we first read the music, the note lengths, like whole notes, half notes, quarters, eighths, sixteenths, are all the same. So you're still reading the same rhythms, but rather the first time you go through, you don't sing the words, you sing the note shapes. So if you see a triangle, you sing fa. If you see an oval, you sing sol. If you see a rectangle, you sing la. And if you see a diamond, you sing mi.
That's so fun.
So it's really, really interesting. But when you're not used to using those, sometimes, like me, you end up singing la, 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 la. If you can't do it that quickly, especially if you're trying to sing 16th notes and you're going fa, sol, la, mi, fa. So it's very, very
That's
confusing.
really cool. I've never heard of that, and I've done a lot of music, so that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's wicked cool. And I had never heard of it either. And there are different parts. So whereas a lot of people will sing, like a lot of us know soprano, alto, tenor, bass, they have treble, alto, tenor, bass, and treble and tenor are sung by men and women, and alto is sung by just women, and bass is sung by just men.
Cool.
So it's very interesting. And then the leader, everybody sits in what they call the hollow square. So the chairs, there's like a section for the altos, a section for trebles, tenors, and basses. And the person who chooses whatever song they're singing will go into the middle and face the tenor group. And then someone in the group will pitch the song. So they'll just like pick notes that will be within everybody's register, and they start singing those notes out of nowhere. Like, we don't have a pitch pipe, there's no piano. Someone just picks the notes. And then the person in the middle leads the group with their hand like up and down. And the last couple times I was there, they had me lead the group.
That's cool.
And never before have I felt imposter syndrome more than I was doing that, because even with my musical ability, this is a completely different version of music for me. But at the same time, when I sat down, I felt like this awesome rush of adrenaline, kind of like you get when you go on a roller coaster for the first time. And I felt so proud that I messed up a couple times, but I did it. I stood up and I tried something that I didn't think I could do, that I didn't think I had the ability but I realized this kind of took a segue into like explaining Sacred Heart, but I had to explain it all because it was all so new to me that now you can understand, listeners, how I felt like even though I play saxophone, piano, and sing, this was an entirely new form of singing. But I'm so glad that I leapt out of my comfort zone to try it, because then I felt so empowered after, and I'm so excited to lead next week when I sing with them.
That's awesome.
So I just think there's such a connection between stepping out of your comfort zone and empowerment. And I felt that so much today. And it was so simple. It was just leading a group of maybe 20 people in song, but I didn't think I could do it. And I did it. So
that's awesome. And I think that the more you step outside of your comfort zone, the more risks you take, the more you develop as a person. Like, I know you've had a lot, even in addition to the ones that you've mentioned. And, you know, I've had quite a few as well, just big changes in life, big leaps of faith. I know when you came to live down here for a while, that was a huge change for you. In the past year, I now for the first time live on my own, and I'm in a different part of the state that I grew up in, which has a whole different feel. So I think that I'm a lot happier since I kind of built my own way in a new location. Not that it's super different. I mean, I'm still in the same state, but it was something that was a step out of what I was comfortable with. And I think that I feel more adult, I guess, or more well-rounded, having to experience different things that I'm used to. Have you ever heard of the bubble hopping app?
No, I have not.
Okay, I haven't really used it yet, but I heard about it on another podcast, and I'm not sure which one, but I know that I heard about it on a podcast, and it was an app somebody developed where they used some kind of algorithm, and they found just any event that anybody had put on social media within like a 50-mile radius of you or something. And you would kind of just like spin the dial, and it would tell you you're going to this today. And they were tracking a guy who was doing an experiment with whatever the app told him to do, he had to do. So he ended up going to all these different groups where he was talking to people who had interests that he had never even thought about. So he would go to like a chess club, and then the next day he would go to like a boating gala. You know, it's just different things that any public event that people put on Facebook, put on Instagram, anything like that, it could find and send you to. So, I think that's kind of cool. Maybe like just making yourself try one new thing, even if it's not using an app and, you know, crashing a stranger's party, trying one new thing. One thing that I actually did a couple weeks ago, which was kind of cool, I was taking a walk just around my complex, and I ran into a neighbor that I hadn't met before. And, you know, very, very friendly. I ended up that night just kind of being like, okay, let's see what's going on. I ended up going to their party that they were having. And that was like such a different social circle. And that was a lot of fun, seeing these different people and being like the one random person who they're like, yeah, I just met this person, but I'm bringing her to the party. And it was weird, but it was kind of cool because it was like, all right, well, the rest of them were all friends. So there was a little bit of imposter syndrome, like, do I belong here or whatnot? But getting myself to relax, getting myself to kind of just open up and be part of the group, you learn a lot of cool things about people pretty quickly, especially when they're in a relaxed kind of party setting. So I think that was a lot of fun.
I think that's wicked cool. I'm so excited that you did that.
Yeah, they're really cool. It's a couple who lives like around the corner from me in this complex, and they actually watched my cats while I was away last week. So they're really cool. It's like new friends. I love new friends.
And I think like sometimes the key, like I kind of heard this in what you just said, the key is almost like embracing the fact that you feel like an imposter for a second and like acknowledging it and then moving on from it. Because especially like I've been to parties where I'm the one new person, and the moment I tell people there, like, you know, I'm new, I'm so excited to be here, then I feel more comfortable. It's like I'm owning the fact that I'm like this new person.
Yeah.
But then like the places I've been to where I've kind of tried to play off that I like totally belong there without kind of accepting it is when I kind of like trip over myself.
It's when you feel more, you act more awkward when you're like, I'm totally normal. You should just be like, yeah, I knew. I met him 10 minutes ago. He brought me here.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Exactly.
Yeah, so there was that. It's pretty cool. I think that everybody could use a little bit more stepping outside of their comfort zone, whether it's take a chance on a new group of people, travel to a new place, or, you know, even something as simple as take a different route home from work or try a different store. You never know. Something could click. You could run into something. Even some of like the biggest things that people experience in life, like our biggest hobbies, our biggest passions, sometimes are just from, I went left instead of right. As listeners have already been made aware, I'm a big theater person. And it was not something I had ever thought of as a little kid. Which is interesting because the videos of me as a little kid, I am like, hey guys, watch my show. I made up moves to the Dr. Seuss book. So it kind of was in me, but I had never thought about like, yeah, I want to do that. When I was about 13, I was upset about something. I was having kind of a hard time. And my mom was like, all right, you're going to do an activity to keep you distracted. And she put me in theater camp. And I never stopped. Even that, like, that wasn't something I had thought I wanted to do. That was something that was kind of, okay, I'm going to put you here out of your comfort zone. And it turned out to be one of the best experiences that I continue to do as an adult. I continue to maintain an active role in that community. So, and when I was a kid, that was just a reaction to, I needed a distraction from something that was going on. So I think just taking chances, doing things that you're not sure are your things. Things like have you ever used Meetup?
I think I downloaded it, but I don't think I've ever actually gone on anything yet. But isn't that where you can like choose like different activities like hiking and skiing and getting coffee, and then like the app will show you like people in the areas that are doing those things or clubs?
Yeah, like there'll be a meeting. So it'll be something like, I want friends who want to go hiking. And there'll be like a club that like, hi, we're the group that goes hiking at 10 a.m. on Saturdays. And you can just show up. It tells you where to go. I think something like that is really interesting to help people expand their horizons and explore. And I think too often we get stuck in our little bubbles. And, you know, it's not anybody's fault. It's life. Life is hard. Life is busy. Life is stressful. And we get stuck in, I wake up, I go to work, I come home, I make dinner, I clean up, I go to bed. And people stay in their same little circles and they don't realize what's right outside of their circles. And I think, you know, your career is really interesting because it forces you out quite often. But
yeah, it really does.
A lot of people with just 9 to 5s, they don't have a career that does that. In fact, their career probably limits them. So it's important to build that in. And I think hearing your experiences, that's a really good inspiration in order to do that, in order to build in these other cool experiences in life. And, you know, not being afraid of things. Of course, there's always like people say things in the world like, well, it's scary to talk to people online and, you don't know who those are and you're going to be catfished. And if I don't know this group of people, I'm not going to go hang out with them because, what if one of them is creepy and is going to try to do something? And you know what? You always have a risk of that in life, but you also always have a risk of like, you can walk out of your apartment and get hit by a car. You have a risk of, you can trip over something and crack your head open and die. All of these things are risks. And I know that sounds morbid, but that doesn't mean you're not going to walk. You're not going to drive a car. So I think part of learning to be a full, well-rounded adult is learning which risks are worth it. And I think one of the biggest risks that our culture tells us, we should be afraid of people who are not the familiar. And when we're little kids in school, that's what we're told, like, don't talk to strangers, don't get in cars with strangers. And, for a little kid, sure. But I think sometimes that pervades our adult culture where we're afraid to step outside of our comfort zone. It goes back to last week about we're afraid to talk to people in different areas because they have different mannerisms, different beliefs, different ways that they live their lives. And I think it's important to talk to them. Because we had so much like stranger danger going up, a lot of people are afraid. They're like, well, I would really like to meet somebody, but online dating scares me. And you know what? Like, I get that. I was scared the first time I did it. But that's where everybody is. Like, the entire population that is in our age group, and really in a lot of age groups, the majority of them were in a technological world. You can find them much more easily on an app than you can if you go wander around outside and are like, who's this person? So it's the way of the world. Yeah. So, maybe take a chance on, okay, also trust your gut. Like, if somebody rubs you the wrong way, trust your gut, but take a chance that, like, not everybody on there is a creep. And people have stigmas about that. And people have stigmas about, well, I'm not someone who wants to meet somebody in a bar or, any of those types of things. But you know what? Like, you're a nice person in a bar. You're a nice person and you downloaded that app. So how do you know that the other people aren't? And you're always going to get some people that you're not comfortable with in your life, but you learn to filter through them and you learn to embrace the platforms that you're given to find new experiences. And it's not just for dating. It's for finding new friends and, finding new groups like with the meetup. I think that while there is an impersonal side of all the technology, it is something that perhaps we could be embracing more or differently.
Yeah, I think that the technology part, like in and of itself, isn't something that shouldn't be embraced. Mm-hmm. I think that people use it for the wrong reasons, and I think that's where things go wrong. Like today's technology has made it possible for me to stay in contact with friends from Ireland, from England, from Sweden, from France, from Guatemala, and that's something that yes, the fact that you can send people letters is wonderful, and I still love getting letters, especially when people can write these letters to me. Mm-hmm. But just for the convenience of it, to be able to go on to Facebook, for example, and message my friend Alice and know that, like, I can tell her I'm going to be in Ireland these days, and could I fly to Nottingham and see you, and have it work out just like that without having any delay. Right. That's something that, is wonderful. But like you said, I feel like people, beyond being afraid of, the other and being afraid of, stranger danger, I think people are just afraid of not being accepted on any platform, whether it's technology or in person. And I think that fear also prevents us from taking leaps of faith. And so I think a lot of the fear behind not taking risks is feeling like you're going to fail or feeling like people aren't going to like you. And I know that might sound petty, but in reality, it's not. People genuinely want to be liked. It's at the core of who we are. We want to be loved and accepted.
Love is one of the basic human needs. You talk like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah.
Kind of piggyback off of your fear thing. Like, there's, of course, the fear that we've been brought up with just culturally that you mentioned. And I think that's so important that you mentioned that and brought it up. I hadn't even thought of that this evening. This is why you should podcast with people with all different backgrounds and all different college majors.
I think that's why this works so much. Like, we have enough similarities that we understand each other really, really well and can relate, but we also process the world differently. And I think that's why this works so well.
Right. And I think like one of the moments that I have felt the most fear going into anything was when I went to Guatemala for the first time, and my Spanish is horrendous, listeners. I try, and by the time I leave my 9 days in Guatemala this year, it'll be better again, because that's what happens when you go into a country and you immerse yourself and you just take the plunge and you decide to go full on and try everything. But I was really afraid to even speak a little Spanish because I felt like I would look foolish. And that fear of looking foolish prevented me from speaking the language. The first couple days I was there, I relied on those that spoke Spanish more fluently and much better than I can right now. But people appreciate when you try to speak their language. They appreciate when you reach out in any capacity. And once I started to embrace that and embrace the fact that, you know what, maybe I'll look foolish for a second, but I'm going to learn something, that's when I really started to grow. And that's when I was able to, order my own coffee in Spanish and buy chocolate orange bread.
That sounds good. Chocolate orange bread?
So, I'll get us some. It's delicious. I honestly did feel like I would be foolish. And how foolish is it to be afraid to try something where you know that someone else might appreciate it? And in a way, this goes back to a couple podcasts ago, trying to speak the language became my act of service, expressing my love for the country and its people.
All right. I like how we're bringing this all full circle. Yeah. So I think it's also important to put yourself in the position of the other person that you're dealing with. Like, think about if things were reversed. If someone from another country came into your town, would you appreciate it more if they spoke broken English to you, or if they kind of just looked at you awkwardly and spoke their language, which you didn't speak? I mean, I would appreciate it more if somebody tried. Like, when someone speaks broken English, I think that we need to also make a point to not judge that. Like, broken English means you're fluent in something else. It doesn't mean you can't speak or you're not smart or you don't know what you're talking about. It means that you are fluent in a different language. So kind of like how you were afraid of your Spanish wouldn't come across correctly. And you probably didn't speak it perfectly. You probably changed tenses or something, but that's okay because they appreciated that you made an effort to communicate to them. And I would appreciate it more if somebody came here and tried to speak English to me, even if, I'm a literacy person, I'm English teacher, grammar person, but even if all of their grammar is wrong, if I can tell what they're saying and they made an effort to talk to me, I'll appreciate that. And I wish I could speak other languages. Absolutely. I really can. I took 6 years of Italian, and really what that did was enable me to pronounce it when I did like opera. That's about it. I mean, if someone speaks really, really slowly, I can maybe tell you what topic it's about. But coming up with the words myself, not at all. So, education people, we need to put learning other languages as early as we put learning English. It needs to be something that is preschool, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, not middle school. Our language centers of our brains shut off when we hit puberty. It's a fact. So that is why when you learn a language that late in life, you're always going to have an accent. It's always going to be a little bit broken. You're always going to have to switch the thinking in your head. If you learn it while you learn English, it's going to be natural. So I think that it's very important for kids to learn a second language at a young age. And I wish I could speak another language. I really can't. But I appreciate it.
On that point, I mean, I met several people I took a bus trip to Dingle today. A beautiful, beautiful part of Ireland from Cork. And left at 8 a.m. and got back at 8 p.m. So it was a nice long day. But on that trip, because I'm traveling on my own, which I'm oddly comfortable with now, I'm not sitting down and balancing my phone and putting a timer on it so that I can perfectly sit on a wall for every single picture that I'm taking that's not a selfie. Like, I make friends. I ask people to take pictures for me. I ask people to eat fish and chips with me so I'm not sitting by myself. So I actually met someone from Germany and someone from Poland today. The young woman that I met from Poland speaks 4 languages. And then I was talking to the woman from Germany, and she's learning English, but she speaks 2 other languages fluently. And I mentioned to them both that I wish that I had a strong knowledge, or at least conversational fluency of another language. Yeah. And both of them just said to me, no, but I mean, everybody speaks English. I'm like, that's it shouldn't be that way. Like, people shouldn't be catering to us just because we're one of the main languages of business in the world. I agree with you, Chelsea. I think this is taking an educational turn,
It
but
is.
educators need to start educating our children at a very young age so that we're bilingual. It doesn't have to be in the same two languages, but please, like, educators, if you're listening, children need to start learning another language when they're young. That's when their brains are the most able to really grasp everything, just like they're sponges. And it's so important.
I wouldn't even say educators. I would say the higher ups who make curriculum, because as someone in education, it is frustrating.
Talking to you, Pearson.
Oh, Pearson. Don't even get me started on Pearson.
Oh, I
know. But as educators, sometimes it is frustrating because you are told what you need to teach, what level you need to get the kids to. And often it's not what you truly in your heart feel that they need. And sometimes you can do it in your own way that really, helps them. And sometimes you can't. That's one reason that I am fortunate. I enjoy my new job much more than I did my old job. I was a special ed teacher in a public school for the past 7 years. 2 different public schools, but overall. And this past year, have been working as a reading specialist. And as a reading specialist, I'm really the only person in the building who does that. So the curriculum, the choices, everything is up to me. I'm not handed, here's what you have to teach them. I have a lot of freedom as to how I make those decisions. But many, many teachers do not have that freedom. So it's very difficult for them. So higher ups in education, something to think about. Foreign languages at a young age, very important. So this took a tangent.
Yeah, absolutely. And it took a tangent, but I'm glad, like, sometimes tangents are absolutely wonderful. And I'm glad that you made the specific comment that it's about higher ups in education. Of course, like, being from a family of teachers, I understand that if there's a curriculum in place, that's what you're following. That kind of can allow us to maybe segue into the fact that sometimes, like, these leaps of faith, these jumping out of your comfort zones, they don't have to be huge scale things. It doesn't have to be speaking another language. It doesn't have to be, traveling to a different country. It doesn't have to be knowing that you deserve a different job than the one that you have and really going after it with everything you have. It can be something tiny that just builds onto something bigger. For example, I was a runner in high school, but I was a hurdler and a jumper. I wasn't a long distance runner. And now I do long distance running, and I'm not saying I'm the best at it. I am blissfully average at long distance running, but I love the running community. And it was certainly out of my comfort zone to run my first 5K, 10K. Now I'm on my third half marathon. And even when I'm at the races, sometimes I see these people that are just phenomenal runners. And it's not only a case of having imposter syndrome, but you also feel like, why am I here if I can't be that? But that's a whole other issue and a whole other conversation, and comparing yourself to others and the dangerous things that can lead to.
That is also dangerous.
But just doing little things can be huge leaps of faith.
Definitely.
Okay.
So I thought of something, and I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. I do totally agree with that. All the leaps of faith are important, little, big. But what about from a perspective of somebody who lives with anxiety, or they're a more nervous person? What about the perspective of what if it goes wrong? Because not every leap of faith that you take in your life is going to have an enormous payoff. Many of them will teach you something new, but whether it has the payoff that you initially envisioned, we don't know. Like, if you go and fight for a raise that you know you deserve, you may or may not get that raise. If you don't, was it worth it? So what do you think about what about when your leaps of faith don't totally pan out? What would you say to those people about how they could still move forward and step out of their comfort zone?
Maybe this is because I'm an eternal optimist, but I think that even when a leap of faith doesn't pan out, I think that it's important that you had taken it in the first place.
Yeah.
Not just because success isn't based on all the times that you do something correct and you're like, okay, check mark, like, check plus, A plus. Some of the best learning experiences we have are the times that we really fell down on our faces. I think the falling down on your face and learning to pick yourself back up after a disappointment is a lesson in and of itself, because nothing in life is expected or perfect, even if you plan it. And trust me, I'm type
Mm-hmm.
A and I like planning it. So it's very difficult for me to accept that sometimes life has different plans than you anticipate.
Yeah.
For those of you who haven't listened to the previous podcast, or maybe don't know me as well and are listening as a stranger though podcast friend, I had a really bad hip injury in
Oh, that's an
2010,
important story. Yeah.
and I was told I wouldn't walk normally again. I was told I wouldn't be able to run, and honestly, like, it's 2018 and I run half marathons now, but the number of times that I thought I was ready to take that next step in my journey of physical fitness, that I thought my hip was prepared and it just wasn't yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those are many leaps of faith, like taking yourself and recognizing that, you know, this is a process. That was a huge leap of faith for me, understanding that sometimes physical fitness is a process. It's not like a, if I do this perfectly, then it will end up perfect. Like, I still struggle with that, like taking little leaps of faith and understanding that maybe this is one of those times that it's not going to work. And that just it diverts you onto a different path of trying to make it work another way. It's kind of like the Thomas Edison thing.
Yes, I have not failed.
Like,
I've just come up with
I have
1,000
not,
ways how not to make a light bulb.
yep. So that's what I would say to those people, that, you know, taking a risk and having it not work out, that doesn't mean that you had any less courage in taking it in the first place. Even taking the risk shows a depth of character,
Right.
that, you know, you've come to find in yourself. So to those people that have tried and who have failed, like, I'm proud of you. I don't know
Yeah.
you, but I know that I've tried and
We
failed,
got
and
this.
it was hard for me to be proud of myself in those moments. But gosh, if you tried, think about the people that don't make those choices, that don't try. At least you did it,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And for some of you, it might be, if you are dealing with anxiety, then you're already in a completely different position than someone who, from like me, for example, who doesn't have that chemical imbalance. And I have that, what would you call that? It's almost like a leg
Yeah.
up. So if those of you who are dealing with something to do with mental health are taking those risks anyways, even though you know that the cost might be a little more to you or harder to get past if you fail, then gosh, you're my heroes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so important to just embrace the fact that, you know, you're taking that chance. And so please don't ever stop taking chances, especially if it's for your own betterment. And, you know, even if you fail, know that failure is important and it's necessary. If we didn't fail, we'd never learn.
I think that
So
for people who it is very nerve-wracking and it is very anxiety invoking for, whether it is because they have generalized anxiety disorder, some other actual mental health condition, or they're just in a state where their anxiety is just particularly high at this point in their life. I think one of the biggest things to take away from it is looking at every leap of faith as an opportunity to gain knowledge, whether or not you achieve what you set out to achieve, you have achieved knowledge in some way, shape, or form. There's no way you can take a leap of faith and not come out with more knowledge than you had before. Even if it's knowledge that this isn't the right thing to be doing right now, and that's okay. Even if it's knowledge that, like, you have to, okay, like what Caela was saying about, she wasn't ready to get back out there and run. Knowledge that, okay, this is what hurt, this particular part of my hip. This is the training I need to do to get there. She may not have known what training to do if she didn't try it. An example that you hear a lot in fiction in the world, taking a big leap of faith. I guess maybe, like I watched too many of these, but like somebody doing like a big declaration of love or something. And let's say it's something like that. If you tell somebody that you love them, do a big declaration of love, and they don't feel the same way, yeah, that's horrible for you in the moment, but you still gained knowledge. You gained the ability to put yourself out there. You gained understanding that this isn't the right time for this. whether or not it's the right person. It may not be the right person. It may not be the right time. You gained understanding in you have it in you to be able to do that. And you know something that you didn't. So it's what you know versus what you didn't know. Even if you take a huge leap of faith and it just all crashes and burns, you've still learned something. And you can take what you've learned and spin it into something better. So like say you do that whole big declaration of love and this person doesn't appreciate you. That might make you smarter for what about this person made them so unappreciative, and it might help you pick a better person in the future.
I think skiing's the perfect, boarding's the perfect metaphor for this, because you say, I failed and I'm going to adjust. Yeah. This is what I have to do so I don't fall that time.
So you have still taken a step forward.
Exactly. It's all the falls that teach you how to be great. Because if you didn't know what would make you fall, then how on earth are you going to stay standing? But I'm glad you played devil's advocate. I actually really like when people play devil's advocate. It makes me think. And
also for those of you who are experiencing anxiety or any other condition that makes it difficult for you to do this, also remember to take care of yourself while you do it. That's all. I mean, you can still take these leaps of faith, but make sure that you have backups of whatever you need for you. You know, I have a little kit of, things that will help me when I'm super anxious or super stressed, whether it's like a tea that you like or essential oils or, your favorite snack, whatever will help you calm down. Or maybe it's letters from somebody who is telling you like, you're going to get through this. Have your self-care down, work on your self-care first, and then know that if you fail, if you fall, you have what it takes. You have the tools to get back up and try again.
And honestly, if you are going through something like that, maybe taking those first steps to self-care is your leap of faith.
Absolutely.
Realizing that you deserve to feel better, that you deserve to get to the point that you are in control. That's your leap of faith. Because I think sometimes individuals who don't or have never dealt with anything to do with mental health forget that
that's the biggest hurdle.
That's the biggest thing. And that is a huge leap of faith. Finding help, finding ways to use the best self-care.
Yeah, people don't realize that one of the hardest parts of having any mental illness is being able to ask for help. Being able to say, I need help. Or even if you know you need help, having the energy to pursue it.
Right. So, and even off the topic of mental health too, even just for little things, sometimes asking for help in any scenario is a leap of faith. Like putting yourself in a situation where you say, I do not know, or I know that I'm not the best at this. I would like to get better. That's going out of your comfort zone. Because nobody likes to admit that they don't know how to do something or that they're not as proficient as before. Right. Remember that you're not an imposter. Fight that fear. Take that leap. And the only way you're going to get proficiency in anything is by failing and learning. The amount of times I misplaced commas, I tell you, in elementary school. And now the Oxford comma is like my favorite grammatical thing. Oh, besides the semicolon.
You really like semicolons. I think you're a semicolon person.
I really like them. Not just for their meaning now within the mental health community is important, but even before that, I love me some semicolons. All right, so Chelsea was kind enough to let me open, and now she's being kind enough to let me begin the conclusion.
I'm not in charge of the conclusion. It's okay.
I know, but like,
just that I usually have all my talking points.
You do amazing research, and you're very articulate. Not that I'm not, but you're very articulate, and you have certainly a better podcast radio voice than I do.
You have a good voice.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
But in any case, I was thinking that Chelsea and I could end this particular podcast by telling all of you something that we're planning to do, a leap of faith that may be something that we've been afraid to do, but that we're going to attempt to do in the near future. So a leap of faith that we're going to attempt to take. I'm not sure if you want to go first or if you want me to go first, but
those of you who know me know that I have said probably for about the past 7 years that at some point I need to record and release an album. I have yet to do it for several reasons. One being that I have at different points in my life written original music, but I am very self-conscious about it because I feel that the original music shows too much of like darkness in times of stress, because that is when I have used music to escape. So a lot of the things I've written, I have been afraid of sharing with the world because it's almost like, sharing your diary. So I've avoided it for that reason. The other being that if I were going to do covers, I'm not sure where to start. I would have to figure that out. I'd have to figure out getting rights to things. And the third being that I am a much better singer than an instrumentalist, and I would need to ask instrumentalists in my life to help me with this project that is very, very personal. So I would have to make sure they knew me very well, and being able to put myself out there in the world in that way is very scary to me at times. So it is something that listeners can hold me to. If, you haven't within the next year heard an album from me, you can write in and be like, yo, get on this. So that is something that I definitely want to do because, I am a singer. I am musical. I like to write music. But performing my own for some reason is much scarier than performing in a concert or a musical. So that is something that I need to do. I think, Caela, you're one of the 2 people in the entire world who has heard any of my original music. And you haven't heard all of it.
What I've heard is excellent.
Thank you.
In my opinion.
So that is a leap of faith that I've been afraid to take and that I want to take.
And coming from the place of someone that recently published a young adult novel, and that terrified me because it was my writing, you'll be so, so happy and proud of yourself once you do it, Chels. I think that my heart has never pounded more in my throat for a happy thing than when I published, like when I officially published on Amazon and Barnes & Noble my book. That was terrifying.
But it's exciting, and you have such a young fan base. For those of you who are not, really none of you would know this unless you know us and have heard this story. Caela came into my 7th grade classroom at that point, the year before she published it, and used them as kind of a focus group. And there were so many kids in that school who loved it so much. They wanted the sequel before the first one was out. So, you have such a fan base now, and that's great. So hopefully it won't be quite as scary. Well, I'm sure it will be scary, but it'll be just as rewarding when I am finally able to do that. So that is my leap of faith that I need to take. And I have to get on it.
So mine is also along the lines of, well, any leap of faith is personal. But I'm a procrastinator when it comes to opening my heart. I am not a procrastinator in much else in my life. I don't like feeling vulnerable. And which again goes back to the fear of failure and fear of not being accepted. I feel I have a strong sense of self, but even so, it's a deep seated fear that if I show everybody exactly who I am, that somehow it won't be enough. So that's probably one of my biggest, darkest fears that I just told to all of you on this podcast, which anyone can listen to.
But they will love you and support you anyway.
Yes, I'm a procrastinator when it comes to specifically romantic love. And, I have had significant others. I just recently I guess the relationship I was in ended. But
you had a relationship recently, within the last few months.
Yes, but, things did not work out. I wish that they had, but they did not. And that's okay, because I've come to terms with the fact that, as the Mother Superior in Sound of Music says, when God closes a door, he opens a window. And for me, a while back, I think that 5 years ago, if this had happened then, I may have just completely thrown walls up and decided, nope. But right now I'm deciding that my leap of faith is that after my trip to Ireland and all of that, when I have more time in the summer, is to actively to put my name out there on online dating sites. I know that my friends, a lot of my friends from high school have had great success with that. They had to, I guess, as my mother would say, kiss a few toads first, because, not every, and these people aren't necessarily toads. You just might not click, because, not everybody that you don't work with is a bad person. It just means that it wasn't your person. In any case, my leap of faith is choosing not to close myself off, even though a relationship I was recently in failed, because failure is helping me learn. So instead of closing myself off, I'm going to make sure that I keep my mind and heart open to new things, which includes making a profile on a site, but it also includes making sure that when opportunities present themselves, that I don't shy away from things that could be good for me, because I think I tend to do that when I'm hurt. Yeah. So that's my leap of faith.
Awesome.
Instead of closing off and building big brick walls, I'm not going to be afraid of the big bad wolf. Yeah. That's my leap of faith.
Yeah, and that's important. I think that's a common one too for anybody who's listening. If you've been hurt, it's very common to throw walls up. And I've had phases in my life where I threw walls up too and didn't let anybody in for long stretches of time.
No, and that's another reason I wanted to make sure to express that to all of you, because I feel like some people think that, it might be just them putting walls up, but it's totally not just you. Mm-hmm. Everyone does it at one time or another, and I am a culprit, prime offender of such things. Wall's not up. Do not build that wall.
Break them down. Come in like a wrecking ball.
No way.
Break them down.
I am oddly obsessed with that song.
It's such a good song. It's like...
I know. And it's like I don't want to like it, but I'm like...
It's so like
whenever it's on, I'm like, she's just being Miley.
Oh, Miley. All right. Well...
She's just being Miley.
On that note, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah,
and hopefully this week we're going to challenge everybody. Take a small leap of faith on something. Whatever it is for you.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be your biggest project that you want to take a leap of faith on, but a small thing. Go outside of your comfort zone a little bit.
It could be as simple as you always wanted to stop drinking as much soda and you cut down to 1 can of Coke a day. That could be a small leap of faith.
And, if you would like to share with us your leap of faith this week or a bigger leap of faith, we would love to hear about it. And you can write us an email, send us a message on any of our social media platforms, or leave us a comment.
Well.
Yeah, thank you. These cats are trying to get my attention.
Yeah.
Hi, Bing. Thanks for taking a leap of faith with us this week on the Sapio Files. To suggest a topic, leave us a comment, or tell us a little about you. You can email us at sapiofilespodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at the Sapio Files, or leave us a comment and rate us on anywhere that you listen to this podcast. Have a great week, take a leap of faith, and stay curious.